All right, let's dive into something that's kind of a brain teaser when you really think about it. We're going to unravel how a single word can have this solid, unchanging core, but also mean something a little bit different every single time we use it.
So chew on this for a second. How can one word mean the same thing to all of us, but then shift its meaning depending on the situation? We all kind of know what the word identity means, right? But the second we use it, the meaning gets flexible. How is that possible? How can a word be both rock solid and constantly changing at the same time? That's the big puzzle we're tackling today.
And you know, the word identity just captures this tension perfectly. On one side, you've got the pure logical idea. A is A. Something is what it is, end of story. But then you jump into the real world, and we're always asking questions like, is that really the same company it was 10 years ago? And boom, just like that, the meaning is fluid. It all depends on what we're actually talking about.
To figure this out, thinkers in the space basically split meaning into two different parts. So let's start with the first one, that stable, unchanging foundation of a word. This is what's known as the eidetic plan.
So, eidetic semantics. It sounds complicated, but it's really just the core meaning of a word, totally stripped of any context. The absolute best way to think about it is like an architect's blueprint. A blueprint for a house lays out what makes it a house. You know, it's got walls, a roof, some rooms. It's the essential, unchangeable idea.
Now, what's so cool about this blueprint is the work it does behind the scenes. This core meaning is the word's fundamental character, and it exists before we even think about using it in a sentence. It's the whole reason we can talk about love or justice in 100 different ways and still know we're talking about the same basic thing. It literally sets the rules of the game for how the word can be used.
But of course, we don't live in a world of pure blueprints, right? We actually build houses. So that brings us to the second piece of the puzzle, the operational plan. This is all about how we take that blueprint and use it in the real world.
And here it is, the other side of the coin, operational semantics. If the eidetic plan is the blueprint, then the operational plan is the actual finished construction. It's what you build from that blueprint, but you adapt it for a specific spot, for a particular purpose. It's meaning in action.
The operational plan is always practical. It's always about getting a job done. Its specific meaning gets shaped by what it needs to accomplish in that exact sentence. This is where all that amazing flexibility comes from. The core idea, that blueprint, stays the same, but the final building can look wildly different depending on the situation.
So let's put them side by side. It just clicks, right? The eidetic plan is the constant, rule-setting blueprint. The operational plan is the flexible, hands-on construction. And here's the key. You absolutely cannot have one without the other. You need the blueprint to know what you're even building, and you need the construction for that idea to have any use in the real world.
Okay, so we have these two separate plans for meaning. That makes sense. But how do we actually get from the abstract blueprint to the concrete building? What's the bridge that connects these two worlds? Well, the answer is a mental tool that is so powerful, we use it all the time without even noticing. Abstraction. This is the engine in our minds that lets us take a general core idea and perfectly apply it to a specific, unique situation. Let's make this super simple with the concept of length. The eidetic plan, the blueprint, is the pure, abstract idea of distance itself. The operational plan, the construction, is when we use abstraction to apply that idea and get a real measurement, like 5 centimeters. See what happened? We went from the blueprint of length to the specific construction of 5 centimeters.
And this whole idea works even for massive concepts like identity. What this quote is really telling us is that when you're in a specific context, like a scientific theory or a legal case, the meaning of identity becomes relative to the rules of that system. The blueprint for identity is stable, but the construction gets shaped by the house you're building it in.
So what's the big takeaway here? Why does any of this matter? Well, this isn't just some abstract philosophy. This duality is literally at the core of how we think, how we talk, and how we make sense of the world. So it really all comes down to this simple, 3-step dance that happens in our heads constantly. Every single time we communicate, we start with a shared blueprint, we apply it to a specific situation, and we use abstraction to build a working meaning. It's the engine of all understanding.
I mean, this whole framework is the reason we can have productive arguments, or build complex scientific models, or write laws. It lets us have a stable foundation of shared ideas, while also giving us the incredible flexibility to apply them to a world that is infinitely complex. It's the perfect balance between having rules and having creativity. And that leaves us with a pretty big final question to chew on.
If the meaning of even our most basic concepts is always a construction, something we shape for a specific purpose, then how much of what we know is a clear picture of reality, and how much of it is just a reflection of the tools we're using to look at it? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.